Hello everyone, I'm Joe, aka Eldritch Omen.
I like the sound of that.
And I am Bill, aka Lost Star Wars.
The Force is strong in this one.
And we are the Trade Federation, the only podcast dedicated to top Star Wars card trader.
And don't forget to check us out on RetroZap.com.
Now this week, we have a very special guest, so introduce yourself, sir.
I don't know about very special. I am Andy, a.k.a. Open Window Time.
Scruffy-looking nerf herder!
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So I think Bill and I are probably both just going to sit here in awe of your trade brilliance.
I don't know about trade brilliance.
Well, Bill, I know you sort of had a couple of ideas of what you wanted him to talk about, so why don't you kick a little at him and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking we could kind of start with a couple general things, like, you know, did you start right away? Like, when did you start the app, and, you know, what has your experience overall been like in sort of, you know, like your vision in terms of, you know, how you see this sort of game or market or whatever you want to call it?
Yep. I think that I downloaded it on the very first day it was available. I got an ad on Twitter that said Star Wars Card Trader, and I downloaded it and opened it 100% because of the ad's multiple references to Episode 7. And I remember seeing those Episode 7 cards when they were in Entertainment Weekly or whatever publication it was, and I thought that was just great. So I was definitely excited to see those cards and assumed that there would be, you know, the experience of the app would be, oh great, more Episode 7 cards. It hasn't been that, but I love it all the same. Never thought that I could like a digital card trading app. It doesn't make any sense when I explain it to anyone in real life, but it's really, I mean, it's addictive and it's fun and I love it. And I do all kinds of, you know, I subsist completely on trading. I don't really even do the Tapjoy anymore. I just trade, and that's how I enjoy this app.
So, do you open packs?
I save up my weekly, you know, daily 25,000 and weekly 50,000, and yeah, I open packs. I save them up now. I previously was incapable of saving credits from day to day at all. I'd always get excited about something and blow them all on whatever it was for the day, especially Vintage Thursday. But lately, since they put the everything in the $5,000 Boba Fett packs, just like you guys said, you don't feel guilty now about getting the other kinds of packs. So I always thought Shred was cool, and now I buy a lot of Shred packs, and I save my credits for that. And I've just started with the Bespin, collecting the pink Bespin cards, and so now I have not yet opened a single Bespin pack, even though I have three pink Bespin Han and several more pink cards. I still have never opened a Bespin pack, but I will open whatever the next one is. And I'm just anticipating that there's going to be a, you know, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father, or Luke Vader, you know, Luke with his hand cut off, or whatever it is. There's going to be some really amazing card from that scene, and I'm going to go crazy for it and try to get 70 of them. On this podcast, I'm driving down the road and listening, and I hear these two guys say, oh, you know, Open Window Time, he must be a huge buyer and buying, you know, spending money on credits every day. At the time that you said that, I had never spent a single dollar on credits, or I had maybe just done it one time to see what the Darth Vader Master Pack looked like. But since then, because I just overanalyze everything obsessively, I kind of penciled out the math and thought, I wonder if a person could make money by buying the credits on the green Shred variant day, because you get one card automatically and you're likely to get more. And it was when the Shred pack it was the Mace Windu day, where you got the purple, the amethyst variant if you had both the regular and the blue. And at the start of the pack buying, there were 3 different blue Shred cards in the pack at the same time, all at 1 in 40 odds. So I said, all right, I'm going to try it. So I did one time, bought the $99 however many credits it is pack, and just blew it all on Shred. And I did. I got a whole bunch of blue Shred cards from each of the 3 that were in there. And I got the green one, and I got several purple ones, and I have not yet started selling Shred cards, but I have traded them for many other things that I've sold, and I think that I will end up being ahead. I think that will be a net positive for me, spending money on credits that one day.
So you probably are buying credits today because as of a couple hours ago, they released the shred where if you bought, it was only like $10 and you got the special Darth Vader's red lightsaber red variant of the Showdown shred. Were you all over that?
I did. That scene, Luke and Vader's first lightsaber battle, is my favorite scene in any movie ever, and I love it. And they put it in my favorite card variety, the shred pack. And so I knew I wanted to get a bunch of them. So I had saved up credits thinking it was going to be for Bespin packs. And I spent 99 cents to get Master Access. And I got in 100,000, I basically spent 120,000 credits, so 12 packs. And I got 2 blue of the new one and 1 regular of the new one and 1 blue Aura Sing. And at that point I said, you know what, Topps, you deserve my $10 for the red lightsaber variant, whatever you call it. And yes, I did. I spent $10 today for the however many credits I got. Wasn't very many, but I'm going to get that red card and tip my cap to Topps for a set that I really enjoyed and giving me incredible pack luck. I don't believe any kind of conspiracy theory that they're rigging it or anything else, but I was just very happy with them, and so I decided they deserved my $10 today. So that brings my total to 111, 112, something like that for the couple of days that I bought 99 cents.
I think that's where all my luck went. I haven't pulled anything in, it seems like probably a week.
Yeah, I was really bummed out by not being able to get those 2 sepia cards and the pink variants. I had initially thought nobody's going to care about these. It'll be like that purple Mace Windu shred that nobody wanted the next day. So I traded away the Leia that I traded for a Leia, and then I traded it away at a very solid profit, and I was very happy with myself. And then I saw how crazy everyone was going over them the next day, and I wished that I had held on to my Leia to give myself the option of either going for the Han also or selling it or trading it, and I didn't give myself any of those options. So I'm glad that I got, I'm happy with the 2 trades, the trade that I got it and the trade that I sent it away, but I could have done a lot better if I had just waited another 12 hours. So I was kind of bummed about not getting those pink variants, and then the shred came out and just, saved the day for me.
Mm-hmm. You did kind of mention sort of the way your strategy changed before prior to the Fat Pack era, and then after the changes. So that kind of was one of the questions I had wanted to talk about. But you seem to be. What sets do you collect in terms? So you collect Bespin and you collect Shred. Is that it?
It changes all the time. For a long time, there's never been a whole set that I tried to collect except the Shred, which I'd love, and the commemoratives, mm-hmm. for a reason I'll explain in a minute. And then I just kind of like the film quotes, and then I've started now going after Bespin, but that was just kind of a one-day thing, and I kept going on it because I felt like I was doing well, getting them and trading them and trading them away. So those are the 3 that I'm in right now. I'm kind of always got a few commemoratives, but I do pink Bespin and the other colors of Bespin, Shred, and film quotes sepia. And the reason that I like those is that people don't agree about how much they're worth. With a Bounty Greedo, if you're trying to trade a Bounty Greedo for Topps Choice Porkins, everybody knows that the Porkins is worth just a little bit more. And maybe you'll maybe find somebody who is desperate for a Bounty Greedo, and they'll give you Porkins and something small for Greedo instead of Greedo and something small for Porkins. But compare that to sepia quotes and pink Bespin. People are all over the map on the difference between those 2. So you will find one person who will give you sepia. I got into pink Bespin trading a sepia Han, where I'll find here, for 1 pink Han, the first 100 count Bespin card. And then I traded that for the 1 pink for 2 pinks. And then I traded the 2 pinks for several sepias and the Han. And you can just kind of keep it going. It's a perpetual motion machine where you keep trading back and forth between 2 sets where people don't agree about the value. And you have to, you're going to, whiff a few times because you're going to offer some quotes to someone who thinks that Bespin is much more valuable than quotes, or you're going between commemorative and black and white quotes, and you find somebody who thinks that a black and white quote is worth 3 commemoratives, and you'll find somebody else who thinks that a commemorative is worth, they're about the same. And so you're going to have some people who are offended by your ridiculous trade, your trade offers, but then you're going to have other people who think that they're getting a great deal on the exact same offer. And that's what I think, that's why I have fun with it. That's why I don't have a bunch of marathon, every card in the Topps Choice series or every card in the Bounty series, because everybody agrees what they're worth. You can't really move back and forth between those sets. You can move back and forth between film quotes and commemoratives, or film quotes and pink Bespin, and people disagree so much that you can have a profit. You can take your cards, you can trade back and forth between the same two cards, and you're getting a card generated every couple of trades, and so you actually have a product instead of just going back and forth.
I had picked up a little bit just from following your trades and chatting with you a little bit within trades. I'd kind of picked up on your strategy a little bit.
Well, that's the only way I have fun. If it's in something, sometimes you get in a rut where you get a card that you thought you made a great trade and then you can't get back what you tried to get into it, and so just give up on that. Go to something different and pick something that people disagree about, so you can, actually get varying results from multiple trades instead of just the same. Looking at the eBay values and everybody is complaining if you try to go even a little bit above or below what the eBay value is. Go to something where people disagree, and that's pink Bespin and sepia, or black and white and commemorative, or shred and about anything.
Another one I think that there's a lot of wiggle room on is day of marathon cards. If you can pull a marathon card on the day of and offer it in the feed a bunch of times, you'll get a huge range of variety, because there's so many people that are just gotta have it. The people that just need to get that card right away, and they have extras of crazy cards and they'll offer them, So I think that's another place where you can get a little bit of that play is, say, tomorrow when Bounty comes out, if you can pull one right away. Sometimes I'll pull a Bounty, or I'll pull a day of it marathon card, and even if I don't have a dupe, I might not do it so much this week because it's the last week, but if I pull a duplicate, I'll just offer it, and if I get something crazy enough, I'll take it, and then I'll wait a couple days and trade for it later on.
Absolutely, and the same thing is true on eBay. If you're an eBay seller, you can put the brand new exclusive card on eBay, and I don't know who these people are that just decide, I know that the price is going to go down by 50% if I wait another 12 hours, but they don't wait. They buy the first card immediately. So that's why you see the first pink Luke on eBay was like $125, and now they're like $40, $45. So people do not want to wait.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's just no patience, or I don't know, maybe they just want to turn around and try to get something more. I don't know.
So I have a quick question for you about the values of things. Well, two questions actually. My first one was, I don't know about everybody, but it seemed like when we came up towards the end of the first month, when the Hoth stuff was about to wrap and we were going to get our first award cards, people acted like Hoth cards were printed on, gold leaf or whatever, and then suddenly the awards came out, and this trend has sort of continued with everything. As soon as the award comes out, not only are the cards you collected worth nothing, but nobody seems to want the award cards either. So I'm curious about, was that a surprising thing in your opinion, that like the award cards and all the cards that leading up to that award become immediately useless, even though they build up to like a frenzied pace of people trying to get them in the last moments? Or do you figure that's just people, I don't know, was that not a surprise? I guess it was a real surprise to me, so I'm curious to hear from you.
It was a huge surprise to me. I would have expected that people would hold on to those awards, the reward card for getting all of the combatants or all of the vehicles. Like, this is something I worked very hard for, and I traded away things and paid more than market value for it because I'm the last person who needed it. And no, they don't. They get it, and then they don't care about it at all anymore. And you'll have somebody offer you, you can look at their card deck or whatever you want to call it and see that they've got the Geonosis Planet and the Hailfire Droid and Obi-Wan all in 4 different variants. And you think, you must have spent an unbelievable amount of time and money putting this together, and yet they'll trade it to you for something that is, far less value than everything that it represents, everything that they put into it. And I find it very shocking. I assume that it's going to happen with every new set coming out, and people just know it and they're okay with it. That's part of the enjoyment. Is it's not really, most people don't turn on something like this hoping to profit and don't expect that values are going to stay exactly the same. So they'll do it just for the enjoyment and, feeling like they got the award, and then they'll trade it away to try to get something else so they can go get some other achievement.
Okay, so my follow-up question to that is, I'm wondering if you think, now that we're about to start getting awards for the first set of 10 marathon stuff, do you think it'll be a little easier to pick up some of those earlier marathon things? Like, will people figure, I can trade away some of my Obi Wide Vision Duel of Fates type of cards, and if I want to come back on, week 26, I can pick them up with something else? Or do you think those are just going to be a pretty solid value and nobody's going to want to get rid of them because we still have the week 30 awards?
I would say that they're the very rarest cards, like most, not rarest, but most sought after cards like Vintage Han and Obi-Wan Wide Vision will continue to be very hard to get, and the people that have those will probably hold on to them. You'll see a downtick in their value, but I don't think that it will go dramatically down like the value of a yellow Geonosian war drone or warrior drone. I would say that everything below that level, so Bounty Greedo and Top's Choice Sabine and the other marathons, 1975 Ralph, will probably go down pretty dramatically. And I think that there are a lot of people who are quitting. There are people on the subreddit, people in the fan feed, and people tell you in trades that they're getting through to the week 10 awards and they're going to get their award card for Bounty or Galactic Moments or whatever they're chasing, and then they're going to quit and either sell all their cards or something. I think that there will be enough people actually quitting that that there's a surplus of some cards and you'll be able to get them a little bit cheaper. But then it will be, the value will not go down too dramatically, and then it will probably stay about the same until going up a little before the week 30 awards. I mean, who's even going to be going for these 30-week awards? The people who have Vintage Han and the week 11 vintage and the week 21 vintage, and I don't know if they've even said whether you have to have the 10 vintage award card to get the 30 vintage award card, but these are going to be people who have really had dedication and patience and not traded away these valuable cards or also traded back for them. So I do think that the value will go back up, but I bet the number of people who think they might be able to get the week 30 vintage award, the full 30 weeks vintage award, will be about a quarter of the people who think they can get the 10-week vintage award, because there will just be so many more cards and so much more work put into trying to get them all.
Right, but I do think that the number of people who will believe that they can get the week 20 award, so cards 11 through 20, will be a lot more. So those middle cards, I think 11 through 20, could potentially be very high demand. They might not feel like they have a shot at week 30, but I think a lot of these people are going to feel like they have a shot at that middle 10, and they can get in on the ground up. And I hear a lot of recommendations to start in, for new players, like wait till week 11. And I've actually said this to some people, to wait till week 11 and start in on, pick a marathon set and go for the middle 10.
I agree, and I think that you're going to see the kind of insane Vintage Thursday, Vintage Luke Rush or Vintage Victor's, the other ones that crashed everything. You're going to see that kind of rush for these week 11 cards, because everybody's going to think, everybody knows that the first Galactic Moments of the 10-week period, even though we all thought it was worthless when it came out, it ended up being very valuable and sought after. So I'm going to try to get 3 duplicates of everything in the first week, and then everybody's going to be doing my bidding in week 7 as they try to get these older, highly sought after cards. So it'll depend, just like, if they do a 1,500 count or even a 1,250 or a 1,000 count vintage card in week 11, and then they go back up to 1,500, 1,750, 2,000, or if then those week 11 cards will be, very, very valuable and sought after, maybe not quite the Vintage Han level, but similar to it. But if the last 2 vintage cards have been 2,500 count, if they do a 2,500 count in week 11, and then they go down to a 1,500 count or a 1,250 count, which one is going to be more valuable? Which one is going to be harder to get?
The number is going to be very interesting to see. I wonder if they'll jack it up a bit for everything. just to give more people a shot at these sets. They could potentially increase it 1,000 for each one.
Absolutely, and with vintage, they only can have so many. When the Luke came out and they had the excellent odds and the low cost, or I guess it was already the 5,000 credit pack cost, but they had enticingly low odds and a low count card that they knew you have to get in early or you're not going to be able to get one. It's going to be sold out. That people are going to know I have to go hit buy pack 30 times in the first minute, or else I'm not going to get one. If it would be a 3,000 count, probably the rush would be about the same. It would be just as hard to get that with more players than there were, harder than it was to get a 1,500 count pack for the Vintage Victors Week, just because, like you say, the volume of players has increased. So the percentage of players who want one who are going to get one is going to be lower or the same. It could be the same if they increase the number to match the percentage increase in total players.
I'm kind of curious. How many people do you guys think are actually using the app? If you had to take a guess, Bill first. So just take a stab in the dark at how many people you think are playing or whatever.
Active users or actual app installs?
Well, let's just say active users.
I'm gonna say I don't know, 30,000 maybe.
How about you, Andy?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I know that when you search for, the only experience that you ever get of the total volume of players is if you try to find somebody using the search for a friend function, and you see, you type in the first couple letters and you see that there are 200 people you could scroll through starting with the same 3-letter sequence. So there are certainly a lot of them. I never have really thought about how many total there are. There are, out of, people who want to own one of those 1,500 vintage Hans, it feels like maybe a quarter or a tenth or a 20th of them are actually able to own one. So yeah, I think 30,000, 50,000, I think it could be higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the number right now. I'm looking at, Anakin Skywalker Legend card, and there are 114,000 Anakin Skywalker Black Legends, and those Legends were basically everyone who installed the app and opened those free packs got one set of those Legends cards. So I've always assumed that's kind of a rough estimate of how many installs, how many times a player has kind of gone through and opened enough packs to get those. So I mean, it looks like there's then 100,000 players, but the question is how many of them are active, right?
Right. That's a brilliant way of coming up with it.
That's a great way to determine it.
And
here's just one little anecdote on how much the game has grown. I just was offered an orange. I have an orange R2D2 that was pulled from an orange pack however many weeks ago, and there are a total of 557 of them. That's the count on the orange R2D2 that came out of the green pack and the orange pack. The orange Obi-Wan Kenobi that came out tonight that was just offered to me has a count of 6,540. So have there really been people opening that many green packs that even the 1 out of 100 to get to a green, and then 1 out of 5 to get to an orange, the count on the orange is 6,500? That seems like it couldn't possibly be correct.
Yeah, I think I just saw a tweet that said that there was some kind of error. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. Green pack, unlimited run, misprint variant, glitchy green returns, problem fixed. We'll discuss more tomorrow, folks. Thanks. That was from Steve Ciccarelli.
Well, thank you. That makes a lot more sense to me than the fact that the total number of players has increased 20-fold just in a couple of weeks. So that makes perfect sense. Thank you for shedding light on that.
That might explain it, because when you said that number is crazy high. So I wonder if that should be the green number or something. But Steve Ciccarelli was on, oh man, I can't remember what podcast it was, but way in the early days, like week 2 or 3. He was on Fangirls or some podcast, and at that point, I think he had mentioned
the number, and it was like 50,000 people.
That's pretty interesting. You got to wonder, like you said, if you're thinking of there's close to 120,000 of those between people who have quit and people who are running like 6 simultaneous accounts or whatever. I mean, yeah, there could be anywhere between like 30 and 70,000 active players. I mean, wow, that actually seems significantly higher than I would have guessed.
What's wrong with all of us?
The addiction is real.
Seriously, it's like crack, except if you had to, if you could take a hit from the crack pipe every 30 seconds by refreshing the fan feed or checking your trades, like crack, only dramatically worse.
I saw Johnny004, I think his name is, on the subreddit, who he posted a graph. I'm actually looking at it right now. He posted a graph of it's like the number of visits to the page, and it's like in the thousands to the subreddit main page. I guess this is. Like, it's not opening right now, but and I was like, whoa, 1,000 people a day are opening this page, And then when you think about it, if there's 30 to 50,000 users, I'm actually surprised more people aren't on there because it's such a great resource.
Yeah, hey, 1,000 people who are stopping by every day, make an account. It kind of feels like there are about 10 people who post regularly and another 50 or maybe 100 people who post irregularly. We got to get these 1,000 people to actually post. It would make the community even a lot better than it already is.
And I would say, while you're making your Reddit account, why don't you just go ahead and shoot over to iTunes and subscribe to some of your favorite podcasts? I don't have any in mind, I'm just saying.
Well, this is the Vintage Honda podcast because it came first, and the one that comes out first is always more sought after, more valuable, more special, more rare. Everybody's going to be asking for this podcast come week 10.
Speaking of other podcasts, I'm sometimes a little bit jealous that there's not another one out there for me to listen to, I sometimes, I'm kind of wishing somebody else would make a podcast too, so that I could actually listen to new content, in amongst my other Star Wars podcasts that I listen to every day. I've always kind of had this dream that somebody else would start one up too. And not that I want the competition or anything like that, but I kind of feel like I'm missing out sometimes on sort of new content, because there's so much. It's so limited that how many people are kind of putting out content that I wish there was more.
I think we've cornered the market. With what we talk about every week, what are they going to talk about? We're all you need. Don't even bother. If you're listening to this and you were thinking maybe we could come up with an angle, no, we've got it covered. You don't even know.
You could do a podcast about the Trade Federation fan podcast. You could do.
That would be awesome. The fan club podcast. They just talk about our podcast and our personalities. Actually, don't do that either. I don't want to know.
I'm sure we'll be hearing about it soon enough.
Well, the question is, is this going to be the kind of app that continues catching on and is viral, and 10 weeks from now the volume has increased at the same percentage rate or exponential rate that it has increased thus far? Are people going to quit? Is it going to start actually, are we going to lose numbers? I don't think so. I think that even if there are a few people who say they're going to quit, many of them won't actually quit, and there will be, even for the ones who do quit, there will be many more who replace them. And I can only imagine that. I don't know why we're having to wait until September to get episode 7 merchandise, but when you walk through Target and every plate in the birthday party section and every toy in the toy aisle and every package of chips and can of Pepsi in the food section is Star Wars all over everything, a rising tide raises all ships, and you're going to have Star Wars Card Trader probably increasing. And they're going to, of course, be eventually putting out more Episode 7 cards, which I kind of thought was going to happen before now. But they will do more Episode 7 cards to catch the enthusiasm for Episode 7. And I think that probably this is headed, the number of people playing, the number of trades, the number of packs is going to just keep on increasing at least for the next 6 months or a year, writing out the Episode 7, Episode 8, Rogue One, Furor.
Yeah, and I'd like to see what they end up doing with crossing in between the physical cards and the digital, and they'll obviously be putting out physical cards of Force Awakens, and they'll likely, I've actually seen some speculation about this, have perhaps like an insert in a physical pack where you can, it has a unique code and you can go into the app and redeem it and get a card in the app, and then thus drawing more fans in that way as well. So I think that stuff will be really interesting to see, and just in general, just kind of where they go with a lot of the new things that they're planning. I mean, I'm sure we haven't seen, we've probably just seen the tip of the iceberg in terms of cool things they're going to do with this.
As a person who has never purchased cards that weren't for game purposes, like I bought Magic cards and Pokemon and all that stuff as I was growing up, if they release Force Awakens cards, which as you say they're sure to do, I will probably buy them. And I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't messing around with this app. So, I don't know. They've got me hook, line, and sinker for this thing. I'm going to go broke spending money on silly pieces of cardboard with pictures and maybe even sillier digital JPEGs through the app. And I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. I also don't understand a lot of people talking about, I'm quitting after this, I'm quitting. First of all, I don't understand the concept of holding on until week 10 and getting your award and then quitting, because you can't take the award with you anyway, and it's not going to sell for anything most likely if that's your game plan. And also, if you only want to spend 5 minutes a day messing around with this app, you could. I can't see myself deleting it or getting over it, not just because I like doing the podcast so much, but because I can choose how much time I want to put into it. If I don't have time one day, it's not heartbreaking or anything, so I don't know. I guess I don't get some people's thinking, but whatever. Free up space on your phone if you need to or something. As long as you keep listening, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, keep saving up those credits and, turn on the app once a day. Don't delete it. Turn on the app once a day, get your daily credits, and then someday if you do decide to relapse into addiction, you will have a great big supply of crack there waiting for you to smoke.
Absolutely. I've actually started thinking about less frequently spending my credits. I was talking to Joe about this earlier today and how I'm going to play things going forward. And I think I might end up letting it build up a little more over time, kind of like you're doing, Andy, and focus on either packs where I think I can pull a couple things and trade them right away for the inflated day of value, or if I'm just going to, really attack the things I'm going to pursue, especially after this weekend where I just was dropping hundreds of thousands of credits and was getting very, very little out of the packs.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. What is your strategy going forward, Andy? I mean, are you going to pretty much stick with what you've been doing? Because as Bill was saying, he and I were talking about this a little bit, and I was saying I might get my award for the two week 10s. I've got Galactic Moments and Bounty or whatever that I should be able to finish, and then I might just stop going after marathons altogether and only go after the other sets that I like Shred, although now that's ending, so that's one more thing I don't have to worry about. So, oh man, what will I collect now? I don't know, but it might not be marathons, so I'm wondering what your plan is.
I haven't really decided. I know that it's going to change. I mean, if you had asked me a week ago, I never would have said I was going to get into Pink Bespin, and now that's my favorite thing to do. And I had one of my best trading days ever. The day I traded for my very first Pink Bespin, I had one of my best trading days ever, creating sepias out of it. And so I don't know what's going to come out next week. Film Quotes and Shred are both, Shred is ending on Friday, and film quotes are probably going to end soon because they're already up at 9, I think. So there are going to be that set's going to end, and I don't know what I will jump into, but there will be 5 new packs for us to look at in the course of any given period of a couple of weeks. And they keep doing these kind of one-off things with the dark side cards and the, they had like the weekend sepia variant with an award, and, going back weeks and weeks, they had the blue and red Garindans, which I loved. I know you mentioned that on the last podcast. I hope they do more weird little one-off things like that, because I think those are awesome to just see one random card in the middle of a stack. And it'll be all of those things probably rather than the marathons. I do think I'm going to fall into the trap of everybody rushing to get all of the week 11 marathons, because it seems like kind of a high risk or high reward, low risk proposition. If I end up getting a couple of vintages that are only worth the same as the week 7 vintages, that would still be a good use of my credits on a Thursday afternoon. And if they end up increasing even half as much as Vintage Han, or even, half as much as Bounty Greedo, that will be a very good investment. So it seems like that'll be a good week to have lots of credits saved up.
Well, what else do we have to talk about? Is there anything in particular anybody wants to throw out before we start sort of winding down here?
Can I plug one White Zuckuss?
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, at length, go ahead. We don't have to wrap up or anything. I'm just saying, just go nuts. Okay, well, don't tell me go nuts, because I got all nice. One White Zuckuss. A guy on the subreddit, I think you mentioned him this last podcast as well, but he's bman133 posted something like with the title "One Red Paperclip," which was, anybody who was paying attention to the internet 10 years ago approximately, there was a guy who took a red paperclip and he said, "I'm going to trade this for a house," and he traded one red paperclip for an ink, ballpoint pen. And then he traded the ballpoint pen for who knows what. I don't remember any of these steps, but he ended up eventually trading for a car. And it was ended up being wonky, because it was obviously a publicity thing for these companies that wanted to have their logo on his website. But the idea was you could do that with Star Wars Card Trader. And I posted on his thread where he had said, here's what I kind of did in one day. I started with this and I turned it into this, and then I took that and turned it into this. And I said, this is amazing, I love this idea, and I declare a race from a card to, whatever card we pick to start on to Vintage Han. And I originally said, let's pick some insert that everybody has and try to keep trading up. And then I said, no, let's be even more audacious. Let's start with one white base card, and I picked Zuckuss because it's the very last one alphabetically. And I took my one white Zuckuss, and I traded it for 2 whites, and then I traded those 2 whites for 4 whites, and then 4 whites for 6 whites, 6 whites for 1 blue, yada yada yada, following it through. I never banked anything. It was always where the give of a trade matches exactly the get of the trade before. So whatever you get in trade from whatever your one white Zuckuss card is, that's what you have to trade for your next trade in the sequence. And you keep going up and up and up and up. And I have gotten all the way from one white Zuckuss traded up all the way to a sepia, your lack of faith. I find your lack of faith disturbing. And there are a couple of fortuitous trades that, you look at it and say, well, geez, you never would have gotten this far if you didn't have this one really good lucky trade. And of course, that's the whole point, that there are lucky trades, that you can offer the same trade to 10 people and 9 of them will decline it, and 2 of them will tell you what an idiot you are for even offering it, and 1 person will say, sure, here you go. And they will, they'll be happy about their trade, and you are even happier about yours. The key ones for me were going back and forth between film quotes and commemoratives, because like I said before, people don't agree about what's the exchange between those two. It's not like you can just go, everybody knows what the exchange is between Porkins and Greedo, but people don't know what the exchange is between film quotes and commemoratives. So I traded 1 commemorative for 1 film quote, and then I traded 1 film quote for 8 commemoratives, and then I traded 8 commemoratives for a sepia. And each of those I failed, many people turned me down and thought that I was offering ridiculous trades, but a few of them didn't. And so that's how I've gone straight from 1 white Zuckuss up to a sepia. And given passage of time and cards becoming more rare and being able to get
more variety and going back and forth between even more sets that haven't come out yet, I guarantee that I will be able to go all the way from one White Zuckuss to a Vintage Han without ever adding in any new cards, only going from the cards that I've gotten from the previous trade.
Yeah,
and you can do it too. It's so much fun. It adds a whole new dimension to the game. B-Man 133's post came at a time when I was kind of like, I don't even really know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to get out of this game. Maybe I'll just quit because it's kind of boring. And it added a whole new game within the game where all of your cards matter to you, but there's one card that matters so much more because if I can just trade, okay, I want this card, but if I can trade these cards for it that are just cards that I have, great. But if I could just get that card with my one White Zuckuss card, it would be even better because I can, that'll give me a great stepping stone to whatever I want to jump to next. And it's such a great feeling of accomplishment. So the only rules are you have to screenshot every trade, and if you have already been started doing it, don't worry, you can look at your accepted trades and go back a week so you can still take screenshots of trades that existed before. You can't ask for help. You can't bank cards and save them for later and say, okay, well, I got this one from this trade and I got this one from this trade. No, if you lose something, if something drops out and you make a trade with only part of the cards that you got from the last trade, they're just gone. And no asking for help, no saying, hey, this is my one White Zuckuss, help me out, and no going to your friend or your iPad account and giving yourself some favorable trade. That's why it all has to be documented, and we can see that these are legitimate traders and not, your best friend or an account that only has 3 trades and all of them are with you.
I have a quick question for you about that because I had started to do it, and then in the end I sort of fell off. Did not. I should pick it up at some point, but you said you traded a commemorative for a quote and then a quote for the 8 commemoratives. When you do that, do you have a trade in mind? Do you have, I know that I think I can get this out of this, or do you just float it like I have this quote for trade and just sit back and see what comes in?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I think once I get a card, then I think what I want, what would be the best possible trade? What's the best thing I could possibly hope to get for this? And I will try to get that, and I will try to get something that's almost the same. So that day that I was going crazy with the Pink Bespin, I thought, man, this is there's such variability here. There's such disagreement. If I could just get into Pink Bespin with my one White Zuckuss, then that would be an amazing stepping stone. But I could not get anybody to take my Sepia Find Your Lack of Faith Disturbing and give me a pink Lando or a pink Leia. And so that is something that I thought for sure I would be able to achieve, and I haven't been able to so far. Maybe I still will be able to. But then you have to have a fallback. So you can sit on a card if you think your card is going to get more valuable over time. Then there's no rush. So like that Sepia is a 350 count, and I think that it will probably only increase in value. It'll dip, here and there, like it's a little bit down right now, but I think that it will go up over time. And if they announce an award card for Sepia film quotes, then that card is going to jump way up in value, I would think. So that'll be the day that I try to trade it for Pink Bespin, or I try to trade it for gold AT-AT driver, or who knows what will be something that I can get into for it at that point.
Interesting. I started it, and I want to do it, but I'm so involved in all of these marathons, and it's almost like it's all of my time is dedicated to staying on top of these marathons. And I think some of that is because I got into them. I got caught up early on the marathons, and then I thought, wow, I could actually do all 6 marathons. And so for me, that's always been my focus. But I think at some point, and maybe even after week 10, I might come back to the one White Zuckuss, which mine is one White Greedo, by the way.
Yeah, you can start wherever you want. I know somebody did IG-88. You can start with any card you want. I think that's great. You do kind of have to dedicate a day to it, because you can always have it in mind, like if I get a chance to trade this for this, then I'm going to jump on it no matter what else I'm thinking about that day. But it works much better if you just say, okay, I don't have any other specific trade I'm going to try to make today just for my collection in general, but today I'm really going to try to go from this card to this card, and then I'm going to try to make one more trade. And you just ask for that trade from 30 people, and you will get it. You will find somebody who disagrees. As long as you're doing something where there isn't a set rigid exchange between two cards, you will find somebody who will give you that trade who is not your buddy, somebody who just thinks that the card is worth, more than you do.
I think a lot of the work is getting out of the base cards and just kind of just going back and forth with those trades. And I'm one who I really try not to get any low star ratings. So it gets a little tricky for me to get out of those base cards when somebody gets an offer from a guy with 700 trades and an 82 rating and four score, and then it's like, can I get 4 whites for my 2 whites?
Yeah, seriously, people do that. You do get totally random questions, or they're like, "Why won't you offer me? All I'm asking for is just this one yellow. I did just this one yellow." And I'll say, "No, I'm sorry, I can't change. You can't. You can change your side on a counter, but you can't change my side." Or I'll just say, "Okay, fine, take it, whatever," and then it doesn't count as a 1 white Zuckuss trade. It's just something else that you did because you don't want everybody to think you're insane.
There's a lot of that stuff, especially if you have too high of a rating or you have too many trades or something, and then there'll be times like, even in some cases, if you see a new person and you just offer them like a pile of cards, like here's a bunch of whites and blues you don't have or whatever, I think some people are so worried that they're somehow getting scammed and they just don't realize it, that it panics them a little bit, because I've had even newer people who had like 50 trades or something, but they didn't have that many cards. They were obviously just swapping base cards around. I'd offer them like some blues and a couple of reds, and they would decline it without comment. And I don't know if they thought I was trying to pull one over or something or what, but I think some people get nervous when they see a trade that looks like that sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I never going to say.
No, that's right. The people do get totally thrown off when you're trying to make these minor trades, and they see that you have a vintage on or whatever, and they see you're trying to go from 1 yellow to 1 insert or 3 yellows to 1 insert, and they don't have no idea what's going on. I gotta say though that as you're talking about like the trade, the star rating and the force score, I find both of those totally mystifying. I find that I get almost everybody seems to have a 4-star rating, or a little bit above or a little bit below. And if somebody has a 3, they're awful. They're just, they just never offer anything good at all, because I get such garbage. I get, garbage trades over and over and over again from people who have a 4-star rating. And I know they're not playing 1 white Zuckuss. They just think that maybe they're going to convince me to take, if I could just get 3 fans choice cards and 2 yellows and 1 elite soldier green, for my vintage Han, that would just make my day. I don't know how everybody seems to have a 4-star rating. And with the force score, I think that's what you call the number that ranges from 50 to 100 approximately. There just seems to be no rhyme nor reason to it. You'll see 2 people with an 80, and one of them has 5 vintage Hans and complete sets of everything, and the other one has no cards that you would even trade for a mid-level insert. So I don't know if this is something that you accumulate and then you can't go back down even after selling everything on eBay, or what. But it seems like it's very difficult. If you see somebody has a 92, then they're going to have amazing cards. But if they have a 77 or an 81, they could have really great cards just like the 92 person, or they could have total garbage. And I don't know how those numbers are figured.
I actually think I have a little bit of insight, or at least a guess, as to why you could see something like that. And I think it comes down to golds. If somebody collects a lot of golds and doesn't have a lot of inserts, they're not a great person for people like us who are insert traders to look at. We look at their collection and we don't really see much. And I think the golds factor in quite a bit to the force score. And I also think the inserts factor in quite a bit to the force score. And the reason why I think this is because whenever there's a new insert that gets released and I don't pick one up, my force score goes down a little bit. So I think there's a lot of people out there who focus on golds, and a lot of people who focus on golds and awards and stuff, and then a lot of people who focus on the inserts. And I think that those things can kind of counteract and counterbalance. And then when you see somebody with like
all 5 parallels of Hoth and multiples of all the different parallels of the Knight Brothers and all of that. That's when you start to see people, and golds. That's when you start to see people in the 90s, and those people in the 90s, those collections are pretty insane.
There was also, I remember early on, when I didn't really know much about what that Fourscore thing was, and I still don't have much of an idea, but somebody had been doing some testing, and I think it was just in the fan feed, and I remember they seemed annoyed or something, but they were saying that for the purposes of Fourscore, Force Awakens cards were being calculated as if they were golds, and I remember everybody thought that was crazy, and all of a sudden everybody was after and hoarding Force Awakens cards because it was really increasing your Force score. And I think maybe they even did a credit giveaway or something for people with a high Force score. So there was a couple of days or a week or something where a bunch of people were just after all kinds of Force Awakens cards because they were counting as gold.
Yep, they did that, and they also gave away an orange Han, I think, to the top 25 Force scores. So they found the person who had the very highest Force score and let that person pick which base card was going to be the orange variant that would be the special award for these 25 people, and they got this card. And nobody knew that it was coming. Nobody knew that your Force score was something that you even should want to make it higher, let alone how to do so. But then everybody's just like everything else. You find out through a trade, somebody all of a sudden is trying to get 9 Kylo Rens for you for some mid-level insert, and you think, well, this is a good trade for me because I don't care about those cards at all. But why am I getting 7 different people now trying to get all of my Kylo Rens that nobody has cared about for the last 3 months? And that was the explanation. There's a new, 25 count orange Han that is going for $250 on eBay, almost twice what vintage Han was going for, and people just assumed it was going to keep happening, and that's what they wanted.
Yeah, and there was talk about doing another top 25. They never came back around to it. They're probably, overwhelmed with everything day to day, but I would imagine they'll come back to it at some point, and they said that they would consider other things.
I would be curious to find out. I don't know if anybody has ever answered this question definitively, but there was all of a sudden somebody noticed that there had been a pink Luke created. It's the pink, the Luke Skywalker on Dagobah Rebel General, whatever it is, in a pink variant, and nobody knew where it came from. At first, it had a 0 count, even though a couple of people had it, and then 10 people had it, and who knows. I just assume it was all people with really high Force score. So I don't know if it was people who spent the most money or it was people who had completed every, daily yellow scene chase purple gold thing that they had. Everybody who had gotten all of those, or the 10 people who had gotten the most of them. But there are these 10 pink Lukes out there, and I think only one of them has sold on eBay, and it went for thousands of dollars because it is the rarest card in the game at a count of only 10. And, there are not very many under 50 even, but this one pink Luke went for thousands.
Yeah, I had also heard that it was just based purely, and this is total rumor, I have no clue, but I had also heard that it was based purely on the top 10 real money spenders. But again, that's just rumor. I don't think there's been any official acknowledgement of where that card came from.
I found a guy who had one and just sent him a 1-to-1 asking him and said, some people think it was the top 10 real money spenders and some people think it is the people who completed all these daily scene challenges. And he responded, well, if it was the first one, definitely me. And if it was the second one, probably me. So it could very well be that these people are one and the same. The people who are spending the most money every day are probably also accumulating all the cards and completing all the daily scene challenges and so on. So I think you're right about that. I think it probably was the top 10 real money spenders.
Well, is there anything else we need to touch on, gents, or are you feeling pretty good about it for this week?
I just wanted to touch on one more thing, and that is the Gold Vault. Several people at the subreddit, Sinqual, Bradford9999, KAKB, LG37, Crane Kick Sucks, and Darth Hippie put together these Gold Vaults that are so obvious when you think about it. Let's all just pool together our golds and see who, keep track of who added get our purples out of it. And they set them up, and there was so much demand for the first one that there was a second one, and there was so much demand for the second one that they made a third one. And I don't know if it ever got up to a fourth. I think they filled up 4 vaults. And all of a sudden, you just get these purples in trades, in one-to-one trades. And it's incredible that they did it. Incredible that they had the idea. Incredible that they put in the time and effort and kind of put their own, stuck their own necks out to make sure that they were keeping track of it and didn't want to let everybody down and had every single card. So it was a really incredible thing to think of and a really incredible thing for them all to do. And I think every single person who got a single purple from them is very, very grateful. So thank you very much, Sinkwell, Bradford, KAKB, LG37, Darth Hippie. You guys are awesome. That was an awesome thing to do for the subreddit community and the Star Wars Trader community. This is a great example. If you don't go to the Star Wars Trader subreddit, r/Star Wars Trader, go there. Things like this happen, and you just get all of the help in the world, and there's a great community that makes everything much easier to get by, and you can be much more successful in this game with a gang of people behind you.
For sure. The sub is half of the reason to continue using the app, I think. Your enjoyment of using the app increases like 1,000,000% just hanging around there. I check in a couple times a day. I always feel like a genius when somebody has a question and I happen to know the answer. I love being able to post about the podcast, which wouldn't exist at all if it weren't for the sub. I mean, the sub makes the game for me in a way. So, I mean, we say it all the time, but yeah, huge thanks to the guys who set up the sub and all the people who go there and make it such a cool place to visit, especially one Open Window Time. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but he posts some amazing stuff there. So that's, I don't know, just everybody.
No, I don't deserve near as much credit as the people who actually put all this stuff together. I just post stuff that's interesting to me. Another example of something really great and valuable that you get out of this sub, Morbo the Gozerian, a.k.a. Sandor in the app, said one time, don't buy Boba Fett packs because you have the same odds and it's 1/5 the cost. Holy moly, I think I got, 1 vintage Tarkin, and then a couple weeks later I get like 6 vintage Jawas because I'm buying Mace Windu packs instead. And nobody knew that. If you looked at the counts you could always tell who's buying what packs by the counts of the Force Awakens cards. And for the time that everybody just assumed that the Boba Fett pack was the better value because it's more expensive. Surely they would incentivize us to get these more expensive packs. Everybody's getting Kylo Ren's and nobody's got the Rey on her speeder and all that. Well, if you had just gone to the sub and you saw what Morbo Sandor posted and just made all of us 5 times wealthier in terms of marathon cards because we were buying 5 times as many of them because we were buying the 1,000 credit packs when everybody else thought you were supposed to buy the 5,000 credit packs. There will be some, even though that advice is no longer valid because they changed the rules, there will be something else like that if you are part of a community like the subreddit, you will find out about it, and if you are not, then you won't find out about it, and everybody else will be gaining ground on you.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Sandor, I have a little story. When it was like maybe week 2, and I just got like scammed out of a really good card. It was like I think it was a red Hoth card, like an early red Hoth card. It might have been a red Wampa or something like that. And I was ready to quit. And I hopped on and I was like, I think I'm just going to get rid of my cards. This game's annoying me. People are constantly offering me these crappy trades and all of this. And he had the card I lost. And he had offered it to me for like a really good deal and kind of like sucked me back in and gave me a ton of positive support, and others on there were chipping in and helping out. And for that, like I that's what kept me staying. So the sub just is actually the reason why I even continued playing at all. And it was the reason why I ultimately ended up really chasing a set, like really wanting to chase a set, and because of that generosity and that, camaraderie and helping each other out, I really focused on getting the white, blue, and red Hoth sets and making sure I completed those. And then I realized, I can do other things, and I can try to get, once I had those, I realized I could get all of the marathons and all of this.
But that week, that was like week 1.5 or something, that 1,000 credit pack advice was a game changer for a lot of people. And yeah, like you said, Andy, you'll see things, even if it's on a smaller scale, you'll see things like that every day on the sub in terms of, here's something sort of obvious that you never would have thought of that's going to, make your game planning that much easier. So yeah, really great place.
Well, I think it's safe to say that the people in the sub who have been wanting us to run a little longer are just going to love this week's episode, because this has been an epic block of podcast awesomeness. But now I think it's about time for us to wrap it up. A few quick things to mention, as I always do. Let's not forget, if you want to email the show questions or comments or whatever, it's just tradefederationpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at TradeFedCast, or on Instagram at Trade Federation Podcast. And if anybody wants to go write some reviews on iTunes, you don't have to, but we certainly appreciate it. Spread the word if you can. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me this week.
I'm pretty sure I was your very first iTunes review. I gave you 5 stars and said it's the first and it's the best and they're awesome and it's a great show, and I agree with it. I've enjoyed every single episode, and now that I have come on and ruined it, it's probably all going to come crashing down for you, and your weekly downloads will just drop to almost nothing. But it was a fun run, and I'm sorry that it had to be me coming in here and burning the place to the ground.
Well, based on the fact that we figured there'd only be about 6 people listening anyway, let me tell you, this has largely exceeded our expectations. So you are going to have plenty of people on the internet hearing your voice and your analysis in this episode, and I bet they are going to go nuts for it. People are always sending us messages about how much they like the podcast, so you'll probably get a couple of those. In fact, if you're listening to this podcast right now, just go send Open Window Time a message in the game. Send him some terrible trade, and just attach a message like, "Oh, ha ha ha, loved you on the podcast. See you later."
Yeah,
and then he will tell me every time that happens.
Well, is there maybe some kind of a distortion of the space-time continuum that happened actually 6 weeks ago? You made that request 6 weeks ago, because it seems like that is almost every single day you get the awful trade requests. Some people get really bummed out by those. Just brush it off. There are jerks in the real world, there are idiots, and there are jerks in Star Wars Card Trader, but ignore them. Trade with people who count. You don't have to trade with anybody. You don't have to accept a bad trade. Go to the Star Wars Trader subreddit, and you'll find great people to trade with. You don't even have to trade with them. Just trade with the people that make sense in the fan feed. All
right. Well, I think that is about it for us this week. Gentlemen, thank you, and to everybody out there, happy trading.
Happy hunting.
Thank you so much for having me on, and happy trading.
Thank you.